Okay, so if we're going to be looking at electrical circuits, then we need to know what the symbols we use in our circuit diagrams are. So, what we've got here is a selection of symbols. These are all the symbols you could be expected to know. So just take a second and see how many of them you already do know, and then I'll give you the answers in a minute. Okay, so just have a little think. I'm betting the ones on the bottom right are a little bit harder. They're also unlikely to come up, but that doesn't matter. It's worth knowing them anyway. So, if we start top left, I'm going to assume that everyone got ammeter, voltmeter, cell, indicator or light source. That doesn't have to be a bulb if it's the circle with a cross through. It can just be something that tells you that the circuit is working or not. Next up, we've got a diode. Then we've got a light emitting diode. So when I've got arrows like this, they indicate light rays, and the light rays are going away, so it's light emitting. Then over on the right, we've got resistor, variable resistor, thermistor, light dependent resistor, heater, and motor. Now, the only thing I want to say is that the difference between a resistor and a variable resistor is by putting this arrow through it. What I can actually do is I can take this arrow and I can put it through a cell and call that a variable power supply as well. So if you're asked to give some practical instructions or describe how you might perform a practical with an electric circuit, and you want to talk about being able to vary the power supply, you may want to consider drawing a variable power supply by putting your cell and then putting an arrow through it, because that shows that you can change the value on it. Okay, so there are a couple of things we need to know about some of these symbols. So cells are just sources of chemical energy. A battery would be when I combine several of them. Indicators show the state of the circuit, on or off, and you can also use that same symbol for a filament bulb, but not an LED. An LED very specifically has its own symbol, even though it does light up and it is a light source and it would show you if the circuit is on or not. Because an LED has got special properties, it must have its own symbol. Resistors are just components that have resistance. Really, they are just pieces of wire of a certain size and shape. Next, we've got thermistors. Thermistors are components where their resistance decreases as temperature increases. So they have a negative temperature coefficient. So as temperature goes up, resistance goes down. Next, we've got LDRs, which have a similar relationship but with light. So as the amount of light goes up, the resistance goes down. As the amount of light goes down, the resistance goes up. Then there are diodes. So diodes are special components that only allow current to flow in one direction. So the current can only flow in what we call the forward direction. And if you look back at the symbol, in fact I'll just pop it back up, if you look at the symbol, the way it's allowed to go is the direction of this arrow. So if you think of this as being an arrow that's pointing to the right, saying that the current can flow to the right. If you came in from the other side, you'd hit a brick wall, so you couldn't go through it. So the direction in which you draw these matters. So you've got to think about which way the current is flowing from your cell. So if we imagine that we had a joined up circuit here between my cell and my diode, then this is my positive terminal, this is my negative terminal. We know that current goes from positive to negative, so it would in fact be the correct way round. So it would be the right way round. Okay, so we'll whiz back up. Next up, we've just then got LEDs, which are the same as diodes, but when the current goes through them, they emit light. Okay, so that is the basics for our circuit symbols. Hopefully mostly familiar, and just a quick recap on things you already knew for the most part. So remember, any questions? Ask me as you see me.